Hey everyone! Recently I did a bit of traveling, and one of the things that I got was this beautiful Noro yarn, and I have never worked with it before, and it is just one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen. So as soon as I got back, I immediately hopped into a project and I made a shirt with this yarn. The name of this yarn is called Silk Garden, and it has a lot of silk, a lot of mohair, and just a little bit of wool. So it has a nice texture to it, and the colors are gorgeous. This is just the leftover yarn. I made this shirt this week, and I just wanted to show you the process of working with Noro yarn for the first time, what it feels like, and just how it works up. I'm just gonna hop right into it. So I started off using a YouTube tutorial, and it called for a bust measurement, so that's what I'm doing here. So I just did the bust measurement, and mine is 86 centimeters. And I'm not a math expert by any means, but 86 divided by 2, I have to divide it by 2, and that is 22, no. Oh my gosh, hold on. Okay, it'd be 43 centimeters. 86 divided by 2 is 43. Boom. It only took me like 2 minutes to get that done. I'm going to use that measurement to figure out exactly how long I want to make my front and my back panel. Something that I also want to consider with making this shirt is that I only have 2 skeins of this yarn, so I want to stretch it out as far as I possibly can just to ensure that I will have enough for the front and the back panel. So I'm not sure what hook size to use. I recently got this hook, so this is a 8mm and this is a 12mm. Based on the size of this yarn, I feel like I could size up and go with the 12mm, but I might just test it out and see if it looks the way that I want it to, and if it doesn't seem like it's working out very well, I'll just size down to this one. But I've not used the 12mm hook yet, so I would be excited to use it, but I'm wondering how that will look. Hopefully it won't be too elongated or just like stretched out looking, but let's try that. I think this might stretch the yarn as far as it can go. So I'm finally unsheathing my Noro yarn for the first time, and I get to see all those beautiful colors that were hiding behind the label. And just as you start almost any project, I made a slip knot and started chaining. Here's what it was looking like after about 5 chains. Here's the chain that will make up the bottom of my shirt. And then I measured it out to make sure it was the exact length I wanted for the bottom of my shirt with a little bit of stretch. And I ended up redoing the chain because it wasn't perfect enough the first time. And the next step was to put a single crochet in every one of those chains. This is the kind of foundation chain thing that the pattern called for. And here is the completed foundation for the bottom of my shirt. I have basically made the bottom layer of the shirt, and this is how long it is. I want to put it up to myself to see if it feels like it would be long enough to be the length of my shirt. This will just be the front panel, so it'll be twice as wide as this, but this is actually pretty stretchy, stretching out pretty nicely, and I think this chain looks really good. The pattern that I'm using did not call for a foundation chain. It was just a chain and then a single crochet in each stitch. For the fact that this yarn has a lot of weight variation, it's pretty consistent looking for this little foundation chain thing. If it was this way, shoulder to shoulder, I think that's pretty good. I do think it will stretch. I think I'm just gonna go with this, and I will block it whenever I'm finished with it, so I'm sure that will help to add a little bit of stretch to it, but I think this is looking good. So I'm super excited to get to the next part of the pattern, which is going to be the intricate stitches. I'm loving this yarn so far, and I just don't see myself getting bored of working with this yarn because of how much variation in color there is. I can't wait to see. I want to get to the next part because I'm like, ooh, what's it gonna look like next? Yeah, so that's my experience so far, and I also want to say this is my first time using this hook, this clover hook, and I love it. With every hook that I've ever gotten, I've never really had any complaints, and I've just gotten cheap hooks except for this one. This one's really nice, but with this yarn, I especially think it's good because this yarn has a lot of, I don't want to say scratchiness, it's not scratchy at all, but it's like there's a lot of stuff that it can catch on itself. It can easily catch on itself, and this hook is so slidey, and it just glides, like this yarn just glides over top of the yarn and through the holes and everything, and it works up so easily with this hook. So I think it's really good because there's not friction happening, so it just like is so smooth. I love the combination of this yarn and this hook. It just works up so nicely and is a lot of fun. So that's my experience so far with this Noro yarn and with this pattern that I'm using. Well, let's continue on. I actually kind of want to compare the bottom width of it to this other shirt that I made. I want to like line it up and see if the length is about the same. Okay, this is actually perfect because I wanted it to fit a little bit looser than this shirt, and it's a little bit wider, and it's kind of in between the two shirts that I made, which is exactly the size that I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be kind of looser and nicely flowy and drapey, but not so loose that it's like super baggy. I didn't want this one to be tight, so it's looking good. And this is what it was looking like after I had worked up the pattern a little bit, and I was really liking the way it looks, as you can see here. So more time has passed than I would like to admit, and I ended up frogging this thing so many times. What happened was I'm really hungry, and I had a big breakfast, but it apparently wasn't enough, and my brain kind of messed up the stitch count because this has to be divisible by 5, I believe, but it also has to end on 3 double crochets, so it has to be pretty carefully planned out, and I didn't realize that going into it. I wasn't maybe paying enough attention, so I keep on counting the number of stitches, and then whenever I get to the end of the row, it's not correct. So I think that's just the thing that it is with this new yarn, because of the color variation and weight variation of this yarn, it can actually be really easy to mess up your stitch count. So I think that's one thing to know going into it. Had I known that, I maybe would have gone for a pattern that I've already used before, so I already know how to do it, but I'm going with a brand new like pattern and a brand new yarn and a brand new hook, and everything's so new. So I have just literally been frogging and redoing for like 2 hours. And I don't know if it's been 2 hours, but it's been at least an hour, and I'm back to this. I'm back to having this much done. So, but it's okay. That's the whole process of crochet, and that every time you frog and redo, you're getting better at it. So that's the way I like to think of it, is every time I make a mistake like that, I'm getting better. I think I'm gonna have this figured out here soon, as I'm gonna do this first row of like the pattern of this double crochets, and I'm gonna make sure that everything is correct. I frogged it back initially because something looked a little bit off. It wasn't like the stitch count was fine, but it just something looked kind of weird. So I was like, let me frog it back. And from that point, I just kept on miscounting or something. So yeah, I think that's something to just for me to keep in mind, is if I'm using a new yarn that has a very different weight than other yarns, or it has a lot of variation, to maybe use an easier pattern the very first time to get practice on that specific type of yarn. But other than that, like, I'm loving this yarn. Also frogging it is really easy, so that's great. I think what I need to do is to just take a little break and continue after that, and maybe my head will be a little bit clearer. I even drew it out. I drew each stitch, and I was like trying to do math that way, and I would be like, perfect, and then I would do it and it'd still be incorrect. And I actually do think I'm gonna need to bring in a different yarn. I don't think I'm gonna have enough of this yarn for both panels, so I think I will kind of alternate between this and another type of yarn. So I'm debating on what one I should use for that. I could bring this into it and kind of alternate. That could be really interesting. Or I also have like a purple I could potentially bring into it that I think would match pretty okay. Maybe I'll try both of them out and see which one works best. I'll update you when I get a little bit more done, and then I'll be able to explain to you what I went with. So I had finally figured out how to count the stitches with this yarn, and so I was so happy to be able to finally have a consistent stitch count and just continue working on this pattern that was so much fun to work up. And so next I needed to figure out what color I wanted to use for the stripes of this yarn, and I started off by trying out this blue polyester yarn that has the craziest texture. I swear it kind of feels like shoestrings. And they had to have a rubber band to keep it all together, as you could see how stringy that is. And I'm working it into this pattern to see what it would look like if I used it for a stripe. And I did not like it at all. It just blended too much and the textures didn't work right for me, so I frogged it. Looking at a few more yarn options here, we have a neon and this kind of earthy green color. And so next I just had to try the neon cotton yarn. It just seemed like it would be a nice combination, kind of interesting. And while I do feel like these are such interesting colors together, it wasn't the vibe that I was really going for with this. It just felt like it kind of took away from the Noro yarn a little too much, and so I frogged it. And next we're trying this Amory wool yarn that is like a really earthy green color and also pretty similar in texture to the Noro yarn. Here it is working up with the Noro yarn, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but it really felt like the texture matched it pretty well. I was liking how it looked a lot. It reminded me of lavender fields with those purples and that green, and it felt like very floral and beautiful and feminine, so I decided to stick with it. Here is what they look like next to each other. And there's my beautiful summer girl sitting next to my whip, and here's what it looked like once I put a stripe in it. I wasn't so sure about that army green at first, but I felt like it was interesting. And we're on to the second panel, let's go. I was trying so hard to capture the fact that it was rainbow hour, but the little rainbow things were not showing up as much as I wanted them to, but I hope that I got at least kind of a good angle for this one. But this is just me working on that panel. Here is what it was looking like after I had started working it up. I was so pleased with it. And both panels were finished, so I lined them up next to each other so you can really get a good view of what they will look like whenever I seam them and just how they stripe together. On to the end weaving, which I weirdly don't mind, to be honest. And while I was weaving these ends in, I just kind of had to put it wherever made sense and just kind of go with it and hide them as best as possible. Then I binded them together with stitch markers to see where they would come together, and then I gave it my first try on. One of the stitch markers popped out, but you can kind of get a general idea of what the vibe was, what it was looking like. I thought it was looking pretty good, so I decided to just seam that all up, and then it was time to steam block. And I really wanted to just focus on the seams because I feel like the seams of the shirt tend to get a little bit crunchy. I didn't go overboard because I liked the fit of it and I just wanted to give it a general block. And now it's time for the reveal. This was a lot of fun to work on, and I think that the only real problem that I ran into was at the very beginning when I was just getting used to working with Noro yarn and just like the weight variation. But once I figured out how I could just get used to counting the stitches in the better way, then I didn't have any problems and I was able to improvise and just kind of edit this pattern as I went. I only really used the tutorial for the very initial stitch pattern, and then I put the tutorial off, and I'm really proud that I was able to do that, and that I just needed to look at it for a second, kind of understand how the stitch pattern was, and then after that I just kind of improvised and I put it all together on my own. So I can definitely see my skills getting better, so that's really exciting. And in the future I plan on making my own patterns and doing that, so this is really great practice for that. I've got so many ideas, and I think the next thing I need to purchase whenever I go to the mainland is just a notebook and some colored pencils so that I can sketch out my ideas, because I have watercolor paints, but I feel like colored pencils would probably be better to just get them out really quickly. I think the beautiful thing about working with Noro yarn is that there are so many different colors in each skein of yarn that you have so much to pull from. So if you're making a shirt or a wearable item, there's going to be something in your closet that matches it. I honestly found so many different things that I could mix with this fabric and that would actually make a really cool outfit, which opens up so many doors and so many possibilities for things that I could wear with it. And this one is like just my favorite color palette ever. It has all the most beautiful colors. Probably all my favorite colors are in this yarn. It has this side has a lot of different really purpley cool purple shades, And a lot of like right around here, it kind of reminded me of like a blueberry smoothie or like a blueberry parfait or something. It was really giving me that vibe. And here it was very plum looking. I love that. And let me show you the back. So this is where it has that beautiful cobalt blue color. It's just so striking. The shirt is reversible, like front to back reversible, so I can kind of decide what makes sense for my outfit, what side that I want to put on the front. I had also debating adding a trim around the neckline and sleeves around this one. I was gonna add in this army green color, but I kind of decided in the end that I felt like it wasn't going to give off the vibe that I wanted it to. I felt like these unfinished edges almost actually have like an elegance to it, and I wanted this boat neck to be really wide. And whenever I got that silhouette, I realized I just really wanted it to be a super elegant shirt, and I feel like that's what I've achieved. It feels really elevated and fancy, and I absolutely love it, and I have no complaints about it. Another thing that I want to say with working with Noro yarn is that whenever the colors change, it's so seamless that you don't almost notice it happening. You kind of see like little bits, like in the yarn, you can see little tiny bits and pieces of the next color coming through before it fully changes. Because of that, it creates such a seamless and beautiful transition from one color to the next. Something also that's cool about Noro, I went to their website and they have so much cool inspiration on their website. There's just pages upon pages of beautiful crocheted and knit pieces that you can look through and get inspiration from, and I would love to get my hands on like a Noro magazine. That would be so cool. So yeah, I'm in love with the shirt, and I hope that you got some inspiration from seeing me create it, and I would love to know, what is your current whip that you are working on right now? And until next time, happy crocheting!